What's going on, folks? So today I'm going to be checking out a band called Imbrium. The name of the song is Ghosts. And this band reached out to me and asked if I would check this out. And they told me it's their debut single. It's always fun checking out a debut single. So I told them absolutely. I'd be happy to check it out. So that's where we find ourselves here. Exciting. Let's see what this new band is all about. Rangers, go.
One
not too shabby, pretty cool. This is one of those songs. It's a little tough for me to kind of review, if you will, because ultimately it's a little like outside my wheelhouse. I don't want to use the word like expertise because Lord knows I am the expert of nothing. But I guess what I mean is like I'm more adept or at handling songs more firmly in like the power metal or symphonic metal genres, melodic rock, stuff like that. Stuff that I listen to a lot and I'm very familiar with. But by no means does that make me an expert. And I would never ever claim to be. So just want that disclaimer right there. Yeah, so this song, it kind of has like a modern metal vibe with a nice dose of prog woven in there. Some technicality in there. And one thing I did like about it is the prog elements, the technical aspects are very, very present, but they're contained. The song, it doesn't like get too crazy with that stuff. It doesn't really just run away with that stuff and get wild, because y'all know when something gets real proggy, like I struggle. But this song, it had those elements in there, but again, it was done very, very well, so that the song is very contained. It's focused. You have that foundation, that center, the heart of the song, and it never deviates too far from that. Just adding those little elements of technicality and whatnot within the confines of that design. And so, yeah, I thought that was really well done, because I imagine it could be easy to get caught up in those kind of elements, especially when that's one of your talents or whatnot. But the songwriting didn't take a back seat to that technicality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it remained pretty focused, and I dig that. But yeah, it had a real kind of modern metal sound. And as far as that goes, my limited knowledge of that kind of sound and stuff that I've heard, occasionally and whatnot, it sounds solid. Like, it sounds solid. It sounds like a sound that I've heard of like popular bands or whatnot in that space. And what's funny too is it almost, and that's why I kind of say it's like a modern metal sound, because these days there's a lot of that kind of like metalcore sound that I think is reminiscent of this, just without like the harsh vocals. Like, yeah, he yells a couple times, but it's never like just like harsh screaming vocals or anything like that. But those metalcore songs, they really kind of weave in that modern metal sound with just, I guess that's what puts the core in it, is just the aggressiveness of the vocals and the music and stuff. Anywho, a lot of you might just be rolling your eyes like he has no idea what he's talking about. And you'd be right, pretty much. This is just my thoughts, what I'm familiar with and things like that. I love the keyboard. Simple, but it does the job. It really adds a nice flair to the song, especially when the guitars are kind of doing those intricate... They're like... what you would almost think of like standard just kind of riffs, providing like the foundation of the song and that heaviness and that rhythm and whatnot, but there's again a lot of technicality there, just the way that it's delivered, the groove of it, it's not very straightforward while under the guise of being straightforward. And again, that's another thing I kind of appreciate with this band, is there's a lot of like familiar, relatively straightforward kind of like riffs and stuff, but behind that like surface level there's that technicality, and that's just pretty cool that they're able to pull that off. So yeah, you have like the guitars doing that thing, and then you have that kind of keyboard melody going, which is just groovy. The drums are nice and hard hitting, and then you get to the core. I like the verses. The dude's got a good voice too. The thing with his voice though is I was left feeling like I wanted a little bit more. Like, it feels like he's got more in him, but he was like restrained a little bit in the song instead of just really going all out. And case in point, like in the verses, solid. I like the verses. There's a nice kind of like groove in the music. There's like some space between like the riffs and the music. It kind of calms down a little bit. And then the verses are able to be delivered clearly and stuff. And I thought that was cool. And then you get the chorus. And the chorus is kind of like the main thing where I feel like... Anywho, so that first line of the chorus is awesome. And it's funny to say that about like one line. But that first line of the chorus, it's got a real nice melody to it. It's got a real nice trajectory with the vocals and the way he delivers it. And he kind of like gives a bit more in that line. And I just love that. Every time I heard that line, I was just like, what a great melody for this line and great delivery vocally. Something about that first line of the chorus was hype. And I thought it was just such a killer start to the chorus. But then it's like that first line kind of builds it up to like here. And then everything after that in the chorus kind of drops down a little bit. Like the next line certainly kind of drops down, has an interesting sort of trajectory, kind of build up like a little bit again in spots, but you never like get back up to the height of that first line. And that's why I feel it's a little bit of like a missed opportunity to me anyway. Again, not super adept at this style of music, but to me it just felt like they were setting up that chorus to be grand, to really go all in. And that first line was just setting it right up. And I feel like the chorus could have reached more heights if the melody just kind of soared a bit more. The vocalist kind of went in a bit more. But of course you need the melody to do that because he does a great job given what the melody is. Make no mistake about what I'm saying about that. But it just feels like the melody could have really soared a bit more, really hit home, have a nice kind of grand melodic melody in the chorus. And that would have, I think, created a neat dynamic between the rest of the song and then that chorus. And again, a large part of my feeling about that is because that first line is so good. And so it just feels like the chorus is begging to take that and run with it. But they don't really. They kind of drop it down. It gets a little technical, I guess, just with the melody. But in that spot, it feels like that technicality, it would have been better off to not worry about that so much and to just deliver a nice kind of grand melodic chorus in the vein of that first line. Just continue that through. And I think that would have been tight because when I'm listening, that first line also, but then it's like even as a listener, my engagement is diffused a little bit just because it kind of drops down and gets a little intricate in there with the melody. So for me personally, that is like a big thing. I think that this song, it could have just delivered that little extra for the song there, and then you get the verses and stuff, or you get like the riff with the keyboard stuff versus chorus. I like the bridge, the guitar solo and stuff was really well done, and the rest. So yeah, I really think it's a very well done song for this style. I enjoyed it to an extent, as much as I can for not being like someone who listens to this style of music. And yeah, just that one thing there in the chorus, I think could have helped the song a little bit, but even as it stands, pretty good work here, and for this style, I don't see anything that jumps out at me as like, wow, this is kind of subpar or whatever. It just sounds very, very solid and well done for this style, and clearly a very talented group of folks here. So that's my thoughts on that. Again, I always try to be honest, even when it's a song a little bit outside my wheelhouse or a sound and stuff like that, and I try to just think of it in the context of what I know and just in the context of just the song itself without judging a song for like the style, you know what I mean? So yeah, anywho, if this is their debut single, I think they got a lot of potential here. Again, I don't see why folks who like this genre, this style, would not be impressed by this song, in my personal humble opinion. So anywho, let me know, folks, in the comments down below. What'd you think of this one here? Let's talk about it. I'll catch you next time, Ranger. Out.